Are we finally ready to have a real conversation about who America is referencing when we talk about the Second Amendment? And even if they do eventually decide to include us, is gun ownership and taking up arms even an effective tactical strategy to keep us safe? Aren't we just going to fall into that pattern of black on black crime and endanger ourselves anyway? Well, we're talking about it after the break. Hey, y'all, I'm Amber,
And I'm Erika.
and this is Brokish. And today on Brokish, y'all, we are talking about Black resistance, but in the very literal sense, not this kind of resistance, but the picture of Malcolm by the window with his gun, looking out the window. We're talking about that.
Whoa, Amber.
I mean,
Take us
listen,
slow now.
shalom and all of that, but I'm just saying, we talking about it. We're talking about Black resistance today and what it actually looks like in the literal sense for Black people to take up arms in self defense against the very real racial violence that we are subjected to in this country. And so we have a very special guest with us today to talk tactics, strategy, and history, and what we should be doing and how we should go about doing it. So I personally am very excited because I'm real violent in my head.
Whatever, Amber. You sitting
I
over there with ain't no violence over there. Anyway, before we get to our guest, which I'm also very excited to have on the show today, Amber, tell the brokers, what have you been up to? What have you been doing?
Child, I've been working. My job really been trying to have me like work lately, and that's like a lot
The
for.
nerve.
I know, like actually having like work to do. So I've been kind of busy, but I've been
That's
following
why
the
you've been leaving
news.
me on red. Anyway, I'm sorry, what you say?
Wow, wow, wow. I'm sorry that I wasn't able to film Real Housewives of Dallas with you, Erica. I was at work, okay? I was at work.
You don't have to do me
I,
dirty
I
like that.
apologize, okay? Please forgive me, sis. But no, I just, I've been trying to catch the news, keeping up with the war, keeping up with Kanye, looking around for all the church people, seeing what they gonna say. Are they still playing his album, child? So I ain't really been doing nothing. What you been doing?
Well, the church ain't afraid of a little domestic violence and, stalking.
Ooh,
The church is
ooh.
not afraid of a little bit of that.
It's so funny
But what
because
have
I was just gonna say, just like a year ago, Kanye, I thought he had got the anointment, and now he on Instagram, stalking his soon to be ex-wife, threatening people, I guess, child. I guess the
he need
anointment
a
wear
new
off.
prescription from his anointment?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Mm-hmm.
But Amber, you want to talk about the Real Housewives of Dallas? Look like I got me a new job, girl.
What?
Well, so my mama's hairstylist quit on her, so now she said I'm her official hairstylist. So yeah, I'm on these streets doing the hair of the 70-year-old lady. So anybody's interested, I'm mobile, so I come around. But yes, I'm full time on the hair.
Let me find out. You got your Lotta body and your mousse
What's the
and your
stuff to keep it from
Bakewell
turning
corner.
blue? That's
Yes,
yes, that's what I am.
yes, yes. You over there doing Baptist roller sets. Yes,
Yes, yes, I am
yes.
indeed. So y'all call me. My prices are very reasonable. So
You gonna do like the hood beautician? You gonna convert your garage to your hair salon?
I got a hair salon in my house with washboard and
Oh, I
everything. Amber,
forgot.
you know that
I
now.
forgot Beyonce got her
You're
own
not
hair
finna catch me
salon.
slipping like that now.
Yes. Sis said she can get her license, her TDLR. Come on. Yes. Mm.
But anyway, so that's all I've been up to. My new job doing hair out in the streets. I'm available for appointments.
Yes. Y'all check out Erica Bumping Curl on Instagram and Twitter.
Yes. Okay, for what we came here for, y'all, our guest, we have with us today one of the founders of Black Power Media and our new comrade Kalonji Changa, an active people's advocate who has fought on multiple fronts tackling issues such as local and national police brutality cases to international human rights violations. Due to his dedication and tenacity, Kalonji has been featured on numerous media outlets, including CNN, Fox, and the BBC networks, just to name a few. Under his direction as the founder and national coordinator of the FTP movement, programs such as International Feed the People, Siafu Youth Corps, Mama's Army, and the National Coalition to Combat Police Terrorism have matured and developed. Kalonji is the author of the best selling book, How to Build a People's Army, and co producer of the documentary, Organizing is the New Cool. He currently serves as co chair of the Urban Survival and Preparedness Institute and director of Freedom Home Academy and Independent African Center School in Atlanta. Kalonji, welcome to Brokish.
Hey, what's happening? I just came to get this, this fresh S curl. Heard you got the new salon popping,
Look,
so I'm trying to
I don't
figure
use
out how it's
chemicals in
gonna
my
look.
salon.
She
I
got
don't
to
do
give you some
chemicals in my
juices and
salon.
I'm
berries.
cool. Juices and
Yes,
berries, you gonna hook it up.
yes.
And she said she travels, so you'll drive all the way to Atlanta, hook me up with this S curl. That's gonna be all right. I'm gonna see if I get
You
my
know
man
what?
Professor Griff too, get his, popping as well. But
You
go
got to
ahead.
wait till she come to Bronner Brothers before she can do her Atlanta.
Damn,
Look.
damn, damn. Anyway.
Kalonji, in 10 years when you're 70, I'm gonna come hook you up, okay? But I just need
Ooh,
the
Wow,
70
she'll
years,
give
okay?
so messy.
she gonna just advance my whole program. Said 10 years when I'm 70. That's just cold blooded, man. Colder than the white man. I see how we do around here.
So y'all, Kalaji, I feel like you've been here before. I know you've never been on the show before, but we've been working a lot more together on Black Power Media and the Remix Morning Show, and y'all were gracious enough to host Brokish on your YouTube channel. And so I feel like we friends and you friends of the brokers already, but because you're new to the brokers, I know that was your bio, but tell us, what are you all about? Like, tell us how you describe yourself and what you're into.
I'm just and a urban philosopher, walking to and fro, like I'm just I'm a worker. I'm a worker ant. Our organization is called FTP Movement. Our logo is the Siafu ant, and I'm a part of a larger collective. And I'm happy to serve us. You know what I mean? Nothing fancy, nothing flashy. I'm against oppression. I love us.
Everywhere.
Yeah, all over. No matter what it is oppression. Um, and I'm a seeker of truth. Just try to bring out the reality of things, regardless of ideology or tactics, strategies, whatever. So I came to win.
That's what's up. That's
Okay.
what's up. It's so interesting the timing of this conversation and the work that you do, because I would imagine that given the current events that are happening in the world, that you see the necessity of your work highlighted even more as we're watching this conflict between Russia and Ukraine take place. And really, it's not a conflict, it's aggression. But we see the way that people are lauding and supporting the Ukrainian people in actively resisting the Russian violence and the Russian um, war efforts towards them, telling them to stay strong, continue to do that. And how different that is when Palestinian people defend themselves against Israel, or how different it is when we talk about African nations that have historically defended themselves against colonialism and imperialism. And so it's interesting that we're having this conversation right now about Black resistance in a time where we see white European resistance applauded and lauded, but we do not get that same type of support and encouragement and affirmation of our resistance when we fight back against the very same forces of imperialism and colonialism.
Right.
There's
So,
never
what
a
do you,
right time for Black resistance,
oh, no, no,
according to them.
no,
Nah,
no.
and it never will be. So I mean, you know, to just put it plain and blunt, we're too dark. You know, remember Chuck D back in the day said we're too black for BET. You know, and that right there, the average person be like, well, what do you mean? It's black entertainment television. But we know like now it's ran by Viacom. So any black symbolism or black modes or models of resistance has to fit in you being patriotic. You have to go along, you have to conform, you have to be against what's right, really. because when you talk about capitalism and imperialism, colonialism, it's about thievery, it's about murder. The same genocide that is taking place on this country takes place all over the planet. And when you talk about places like the Ukraine, um, they are unfortunately being used as puppets against a rogue regime. And that rogue regime happens to be the United States, the EU, NATO. These are folks who are looking to control and dominate um, not only the West, but the entire planet. So when you see these patriotic gestures, and you see folks shedding tears for Ukrainians who happen to be neo Nazis, you know, as you can see when the African brothers and sisters who were trying to um, escape the onslaught, they were turned away. They were forced back by their white Ukrainian brothers. So the fact of the matter is, they talked about us being 3/5 of human beings. That mentality is still here. Just
Mhm.
because they changed it on the books doesn't mean that that's not what they think of you. So
So, Kalonji, take us. You talked about being 3/5 of an individual. So, take us back in history, if you will, however far back you want to go, and talk to us about sort of how Black people have dealt with or been allowed to deal with arms as long as we've been on these shores.
well, I mean, resistance has always existed. We've been taught that you know Africans were slaves. They were enslaved and they were brought here and they were obedient. And if they weren't obedient, they would get whipped, so on and so forth. But there's always been resistance because of the fact that they snatched up warriors as well. So there was always planning. There was always plots to overthrow, even in a house. The term house Negro is a derogatory term, but there were enslaved Africans in the house that ground up glass to put in masses food, poisoned them and made sure that those in the field were getting nourished and taken care of, and so on and so forth, and slid them tools. So there's always been organized resistance. But unfortunately, not only does the state not want you to know that, but there are Africans here in America that don't want you or don't want to know it, because you know resistance is often taken as a terrorist act. You know what I mean? But self-defense is not a violent act. You understand what I'm saying? Because if I
Yeah.
run up in your home and I slap your husband, and I'm just trying to go on a rampage, and you just sitting there like, well, my
He might be
Lord
on his
told
own
me.
though, Kalonji. If we
Yeah.
keeping it all the way 100 though, if you come and slap, he might like,
Man,
what you want me to do?
and that was a bad analogy because I don't know your husband. I don't want to run in. What was
Call
you
me
saying about?
Daryl. Call me.
I mean, my heart is with you, bro. But what I'm
Yeah,
gonna do?
nah, but the thing is, it's like we self-defense is a natural thing. In any species is going to defend their offspring or defend their husbands, their wives, so on and so forth, because that's what you're supposed to do. You know, we want to get religious when it comes to responding, but if we're going to get quote unquote religious, then we have to go all the way. You know, we have to look at the fact that there was resistance amongst the disciples. There was resistance amongst the prophets. It wasn't a situation where we was just getting whooped and say, let's pray. You know what I'm saying? David responded to Goliath. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah.
Um, Jesus responded to the money changers in the church, in the temple,
Is
who
Kalonji
came
trying to
through
get us to
kicking over
pass a plate,
tables.
Amber? That's
I'm,
why
I'm,
he.
hey, that'd be good. But the fact is, it's like we omit certain things because of the fact that it doesn't fit the narrative, and whatever um, requires accountability and responsibility, we want to skip over that part.
Yeah.
And we're so lazy all throughout the African community. We're like, let's, in the church, it's like leave it in the Lord's hand. Like the Lord's hands ain't full enough. You know what I'm saying? Everybody leave the Lord's hand. And then in the so-called conscious community, let's call on the ancestors. The ancestors have done all the work they can do. they transitioned and moved on, you still calling them on to work. So it's like it's always a pass the buck type situation. But resistance has always existed. Even when you look at Dr. King, they talk about Dr. King like he was just some, soft dude walking around, and we shall overcome, and that was it. Some of my elders were comrades with King. And one of the stories that keep coming up is the fact that the Bible that Dr. King had was hollowed out. The one he carried when he was marching, and it had a 38 snub nose in it. You know what I'm saying? He wasn't just, stopping reading the scripture.
MLK was around here packing like this.
Hey man, look here, man. It's like what they say in Islam. They say trust in Allah, but tie your camel. We have to
Okay.
we have to be intelligent enough to move and defend our situation. So when we talk about taking up arms, it's not just firearms. It's a slingshot, it's a sword. It's whatever it's by any means. You know,
Yeah.
but we shouldn't be afraid to take up arms.
And it's so interesting because there is a feigned ignorance that people have in this country about the necessity of a comprehensive resistance, but we only feign that ignorance when we come to talking about it, like you said, with Black people and with the resistance that we have to the struggle in this country. Because when we talk about the Boston Tea Party,
Yes.
and when we learn about it in elementary school, nobody talks about that as looting and plundering, when that's exactly what it was. I mean, it was literally looting and plundering, right?
Yes.
When people talk about the way that the Americans pre the official formation of the United States resisted this idea of being taxed without having a voice, and how they fought back against the British Empire. We celebrate those things. We get a whole day off from work from it. But when Black people do the same thing, when we take to the streets, when we, loot and plunder symbols of capitalism to show why we are against, the forces of capitalism that are conspiring with racism to keep us down, we are criminalized for it, right?
Of course.
Because then all of a sudden it's so hard to understand why people do that when we sit in history classes and sociology classes every single day and we learn about those exact same tactics, but nobody seems to have a problem with it on the other side,
Right. Right.
you know?
Right. And it's funny
So
you
one
say
of
that. I'm
oh,
sorry.
go
Go
ahead,
ahead.
Kalonji.
No, I was just gonna point out, like, to your point, the Minutemen are thought of as patriots. The Black Panther Party was terrorists. You know what I mean? They both were trying to resist tyranny and oppression. The Black Panther Party, they weren't going around shooting people. They were there to defend their community. Their biggest program was the Feed the People program, the Feed the Children program, where in Chicago alone they fed over 5,000 children. This same program was adopted by the U.S. government. This is the food program that exists in our school system right now. You know what I mean? Free health clinics, all that type stuff. These are programs that they offer the community, viable programs. You know what I mean? No one has a problem with the police who have a track record, who have a history of gunning us down, who have a history of snatching us up and beating us down and placing us in a cell, and we're committing suicide with plastic trash bags and all this other nonsense. No one has a problem with that. But when it comes to us defending our position and saying that, look, man, you like your eye, I like mine too. You know what I'm saying? Let's be cool. Then it's another problem because of the fact that you're talking about, particularly with an organized faction. So when you're talking about Black folks coming together and just saying that we're going to create a gun club, all eyes are on, they're on you now. You know what I
That's
mean?
called a gang.
Anything's
Yeah,
called
the
a game.
act itself is violent.
Yeah.
But Kalonji, one of the images that keeps coming to my mind is, and it makes me think about this duality that we have in terms of Black people having arms and other people having arms, is the Black Panther Party, the state capitol in California, and going there and taking up arms. Can you tell us a little bit about historically, as it relates to the Black Panther Party or others who took up arms, and then the resistance that they faced from our government that says we have a right to do so?
Right. I mean, when you talk about, again, the Black Panther Party, which would be the more popular, of course you had the Deacons for Defense, Deacons for Self-Defense. You had RAM, Revolutionary Action Movement. You had SNCC, Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, and a number of other different formations. Um, you mentioned what went on in Sacramento. It was because of the fact that the Panthers decided to march on the Capitol that they changed the gun laws. You know, um, the SWAT teams were invented because of the Black Panther Party. They were put together in LA because of the fact they wanted to respond to the Black Panther Party because they've created this propaganda and this imagery of, as Robert Williams would say, Negroes with guns. So when you have Negroes with guns in their mind, in the minds, it's like it's akin to an abusive relationship. You was with a dude that was beating you up and terrorizing you and dealing with you in all types of foul ways. And all of a sudden you've learned the martial arts, you at the gun range, so on and so forth. You know, he sees you later on in life. He remembers what he did to you. It ain't like, he got convenient amnesia in the back of his mind, like, she might remember, or he sees you with your new man, who he sees is like, you dating Mike Tyson right now. You know, I don't want that problem. So this is how it is with these white folks because of the fact, and the state, the government in particular, because they realize and they recognize that, we forget, they don't. You know what I mean? When they declare war on you, it's generational. It's not just, you know, I got beef with Erika, so that's it. They know that your offspring has potential. You know what I mean? So historically, when you talk about resistance, there's always been situations down in Louisiana and down in Mississippi and the Delta where, you had these slave catchers, or not even the slave catchers, you had these white folks, these Klansmen that want to come try to take your brother or take your sister or take you. And you had black folks that feared. But then you had some black folks that was like, look, no, we ain't having that. We ain't even thinking about that. You come over to this side of the tracks, kneel leg, squill leg, get killed leg. You know what I mean? That's just it. And it's not, we're not coming to look for you. But if you come to where we are, then it's going to be a problem. So they had to create all kinds of laws. Uh, and they still utilize some of these draconian laws in different places like New York and Connecticut, where I'm from, and Chicago, places like this. They have mandatory minimums of 5 years, because they want to make sure that that if you get caught with a handgun, that you are a criminal. But on the same token, white folks can go get these gun permits with no problem. It's easy. Black folks, they want to know where your mother went to school with. I mean, where she went to school, who she dated first, what did she have for lunch in third grade, all kinds of other nonsense. And we're like, man, dismayed, like, man, forget it. I'm just gonna get a baseball bat and I'm gonna put it by the door. So and then, like, on the flip side, like you're saying, you have states like Texas and Georgia, which are stand your ground states. Texas, an open carry state. I understand that now you can get the handguns out there without permits or whatever. But the reality is, it's not even about the arm itself. It's not really even about the firearm. It's not even about the weapon. You're the weapon. There's a situation here in Georgia, a 27-year-old veteran. I forget the brother's name. What's this brother's name? It's escaping me right now. But anyway, he's 27 years old, and he had a mental breakdown. His name is Anthony Hill.
Mm-hmm.
Anthony Hill is a 27-year-old out here in Atlanta, in DeKalb County, which is right next door to us. And he had an episode, broad daylight. He's outside, totally naked, butt naked, as they say. You know what I mean? And, this cop shoots him twice, center mass, broad daylight. And he lied. The cop lied and said he shot him because he ordered him to stop, and he kept coming at him. He ran at him, and he was afraid for his life. And they found that it was false. They got cameras, they got witnesses, the whole nine. But he didn't get charged with murder. He got charged with falsifying documents.
Of course.
You know what I mean? But so it didn't matter that Anthony Hill didn't have a weapon. I mean, he's totally naked. You can see him. What is he going to do? Run up on you and get you pregnant? I mean, like,
Yeah.
what's the situation?
Yeah.
He's going to sexually assault you. But this is a veteran who served his quote unquote country, and he came home. He didn't get gunned down overseas. He got gunned down in his housing complex
But
by
I'm so glad that in the
yeah,
State of the Union, Joe Biden said he's going to help the veterans,
oh
and
yeah,
also he's going to deal with mental health. So,
yeah. Well, if you believe that, then I got a new oil rig out in Dallas that I'm looking to sell. So send me. I'll send you my cash app. But yeah, I mean, and all of that is game. I mean, how many State of the Unions have we seen? In our lifetime.
too many to count.
What has changed? What benefit? We always get fed lies. We always get souped up, and it's back to business as usual. We know Joe Biden. Joe Biden's been in electoral politics for 50 years, literally
Yeah.
50 years, and folks are acting like we'll give him a chance. He's only been president for a year and a half. He served as vice president under Obama for 8 years.
And in the Senate for forever.
Since he was there since George Washington was there. You know what I'm saying? Right, came
So,
back, changed his name.
Kalonji, I have a question for you tell us more about the Urban Survival Preparedness Institute, right? So I am a person who, when I think about arms naively, I only think about guns, right? My mind is not even broad enough to understand that there are other ways that you can protect yourself or just have things to survive. So can you just share more about what you all do there and what you help people to do?
No doubt. So I co-chair and co-founded the Urban Survival Preparedness Institute with my brother Balagono Jatade, who is he's also on Black Power Media. He has a show on Saturdays called Warrior Class, but he's over the African Martial Arts Institute. He's been training in the martial arts for close to 50 years, if not 50 years. His father was a master martial artist as well, and he's one of our comrades. So I came to him. We were speaking about starting a prep neighborhood, a preparing organization. So we were going back and forth. I was going to supply the politics, the political side of things, political education, and he's a veteran as well. He's a veteran, special forces, martial artist, so on and so forth. And we have different backgrounds that we felt would work together well. So we got that started back in 2015. And what the Urban Survival Preparedness Institute is about, it's not even about just defense from violence. It's everything from natural disasters to man-made disasters, so on and so forth, police terrorism, stuff like things like Katrina.
Okay.
So we've looked at we sat back and we watched our people suffer. During Katrina, you had folks who were quote unquote activists and freedom fighters laying up in the same Superdome with people who were looking at them for assistance, and they had no apparatus, no preparedness abilities or skills to help to save us. So we looked at those factors. We looked at the fact that oftentimes you have elders that live in apartment buildings, and when there's a hurricane, there's a tornado, or whatever the case is, you're not thinking about, if they're not related to you, you're not thinking about what's going on with these elders, what's going on with the physically challenged, mentally challenged, so on and so forth. So we wanted to create a program to combat the ills of society and to render aid in a practical way. And it dawned on us that it really wouldn't make sense to have any type of political organization if you don't have preparedness skills.
So what are preparedness skills? Like, what does that mean to somebody like me who doesn't know?
I mean, everything from let's say there's we have what we call go bags, or bug in and bug out bags. So let's say that there's a I don't know, hurricane over in your area, whatever the case is, and it's going down. Hurricane Katrina's cousin is here now, and we know that some areas are prone to them. So we have survival bags. There might be a situation where the power goes out, and there's looting or whatever the case is. You need the grocery stores might close. There's always situations where there's natural disasters or whatever, and the grocery stores are running out of food. How do you survive? You know what I mean? So you want to be able to have supplies that can carry you over, because we can't always depend on, the grocery stores. You can't always depend on hospitals, so on and so forth. If something really goes down, some type of tragic situation, a fire, whatever the case, how do we survive that? Do we just lay back and we got these old stale crackers in the closet, what we gonna do? So being prepared is about readiness, being able to move when it's time to move, being able to live and sustain yourself until you can get to a better point. So
It's interesting that, sorry,
no,
I
sorry,
was
go
going
ahead.
to say, it's interesting that you're talking about that because you might remember here in the Dallas area, really in lots of places in Texas, when we had the power grid failure.
Right.
And the problem was in Dallas is because it was so cold, there was ice on the roads and we don't have a way to clear the road. So you could not drive.
Right.
And then the electricity was out in so many places. And so literally you had people all over, like where my parents are, they didn't have electricity for long periods of time.
Right.
And so they were trying to huddle by the fire. But it was one of those things where I know sometimes people might think Preparedness Institute, like, are you some crazed doomsday prepper? But in thinking back to that, that's exactly the type of
It's
preparedness
exactly what it
that we
is.
need. Yeah. And
Canning. Yeah.
literally today, as I'm sitting here, my parents are getting a generator installed because they're
Mhm.
like, it ain't gonna happen to me again.
Yeah, no
you
doubt.
know.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And that's exactly what it is. So, and forgive me if I'm all over the place, but you know, when you talk about preparedness, something as simple as that, canning. You might have a garden or whatever.
You got
Winter's
some
coming or
peach
whatever.
preserves over there, Kalonji. Don't let me find out you got
Hey
some peach
man, we
preserves
I
over
ain't telling you nothing about what we got. See you now trying to come knock on the door. Now we try to tell you, but y'all weren't listening to us. So when those things go down, the power grids go out and all that, we already have alternative measures, alternative means. We're not gonna be trying to rush to the grocery store because what happens is folks panic. It's just like when the whole pandemic came about. You can't find toilet paper. Folks trying to buy up all the water. I mean, but think about that. I mean, you're talking about a pandemic and you're worried about toilet paper. That's your means of survival. That's you can't survive without toilet paper. You know what I mean? I understand water. So we make sure that we keep water stocked up. We make sure we keep if we're in certain areas, canned goods or whatever the case is, stuff that won't fail. Medicines. Oftentimes they say that uh, the ibuprofen might expire on this particular date. Usually those medicines are good for like 2-3 years beyond. But with capitalism, they want to make sure that you feel like when they slap this expiration date on it, that I can't eat this no more because it says such and such, such and such. They want to keep. This is what capitalism is about. It's about you, coming back with that money. Keep coming back. Keep depending on us. So, you know, there's always widespread panic. And folks are losing their minds here in Atlanta. Couple different instances. People were shot in the parking lot of grocery stores because everybody's just going wild and they're trying to get that. They said it's going to be a snowstorm tomorrow, and the shelves are bare and all that type stuff. Why? Because we did not prepare. But if we look at our grandparents and we look at folks who come from uh, farming backgrounds,
They
uh,
stayed ready.
I mean, first of all, how often was they going to the store? Usually there wasn't even any grocery stores. They might have had a country store there. But certain things, batteries, flashlights, these are common sense things. You should already know where the flashlights are. You should already know where the candles are if there's an issue, there's a problem. So That's readiness, that's preparedness. So it's not just about, we throwing on a backpack and we throwing up our guns and you know we out and eating tree bark. Part of our particular piece is we're urban survival prepared. We're into urban survival preparedness. We're not talking about going up in the woods, the wilderness. You don't even live near the woods. That training is great, but if you don't live near the woods, then knowing what leaves you can eat and all that don't really matter at the end of the day because you can't even get there. If they're shutting the roads down, how are you going to maneuver? Like you said, the roads are icy. What's the backup plan? What happens? Fortunately, we haven't experienced long-term power outages. Because imagine if you did, a week or two down the line, you don't know your neighbors. Some of them going to be trying to come up in your spot because they're trying to eat. The grocery stores are bare. What do? Invite everybody in? No, you got to feed your family. So we
Oh,
build.
Kalonji, you
I mean,
look, Amber probably needs some preparedness training right now. I think her electricity just went out. You see, like, so
her internet went out. Huh?
I think
She
she
jammed.
wasn't ready for
We got to
that
get her a can with a
eventuality.
line to it, a string to it. Talk, Amber, what's up? We over here.
But I do have another question. So there's this general preparedness, but I do want to talk about guns. And I know y'all were making fun of me the other day because Erica don't know nothing about guns. I don't have it. I don't know guns. So for somebody like me who is sort of tossing around this idea of what if I wanted to start thinking about a gun, what do I do? What are the baby steps for the newbies in the gun world?
The baby steps. I would suggest you possibly take some classes just to get familiar with gun safety. That's the first thing. Because just having a gun don't mean anything if you don't know how to operate it. It's like having a Ferrari and you don't know how to start the car. Someone's after you and you like, oh man, what am I going to do? You don't know how to press the button. You don't even know how to open the doors. You end up hurting yourself. So same thing with guns. The first thing is about gun safety. You want to make sure that you know how to operate the tool because it's more than just a weapon. It's a tool, and it can be utilized for whatever means. And then you want to decide what size weapon you would like to get. If I were to suggest something for you, I would say get a 9mm or a 380. Why? Because it has stopping power. I mean, no, it's nothing wrong with it. It has stopping power, but at the same time, it doesn't have a lot of recoil. So you don't have to worry about, all this other craziness. You can, aim and get everything right. And for the home, I would suggest a shotgun because you can't get a rifle because a rifle is going to go further, but a shotgun, someone's trying to get in or whatever the case is, then you can go ahead and hold them back. you know but you know I wouldn't you get so many people saying, well, I'm against guns and I'm against that. That's okay. There's nothing wrong with you being against guns, but it's better to be prepared than not be prepared. I watch a lot of ID Discovery and a lot of I see how crazy these white folks are. So you catch a couple episodes of that, you'll rethink. You'll be like, you know what? I might want to get a gun or bat or a fingernail file or something. But
I'm not a person that's against guns. I've just never had occasion. I've never really thought about it. It's just one of those things where you're sort of moving through life. And even I have friends who every time in their glove box they have a gun. I have a friend who told me specifically because she was a single woman, and she said whenever I have somebody over to my house, a repair person or something like that, I'm strapped because I don't know what could happen in this exchange, right? I don't have anybody else here, at least having another person there. So
right.
it's just I've never thought about it. I'm not against the idea. Certainly I think it's fine for people who want to do that. And I have been thinking more about if I want to take up arms and what that could look like. But
Yeah.
I was just talking to my hairstylist and because he's sort of a gun person. And I was talking to
Hairstylist with a
him.
gun. He a bad dude. But go ahead. I'm sorry.
he is.
Like,
And
got
he
my
was
money.
like, he was like, Eric, I think you need to think more broadly about this. He's just like, um, it can be multiple things. So he's like, for example, maybe in the office in the front of my house, I just might have a golf club tucked away, not
Right.
because, I mean, it's not like conspicuous, but I just might have something here or there. And he's like, so just in different places, it's not like you're afraid, but to your point of preparedness, if I can inconspicuously have some things in my home, not necessarily just guns for a situation, then maybe it's beneficial for me to do that. I just never thought about it.
Right. And gun safety, but also go to the range. You know, it's you know date night. Let's go to the range. I mean, let's go. You know, with the targets or whatever. Or learn archery. I mean, just something to defend yourself because I mean, first of all, just to you all's point about being black with guns. These gun laws are going to flip eventually, and you know you might not be able to buy or you might not be able to have all ammunition. So you want to get started now while you still can because of the fact that eventually the well may run dry, and if you're the only one without a gun, and unfortunately when you talk about power, I mean, this is what they use. This is their force and violence is through the gun. You know what I mean? You can't talk your way. I mean, you can't punch a bullet. You can't stab it. If you get a gun and never have to use it, it's better than not having it at all. You know.
Well, here's what I am afraid of, as relates to guns, is that you and I both know that the the law may not even get in our way, right? We can go, and we live in these states with liberal gun laws, so we can go, we can get our ammunition, we can get our guns. But the minute we try to use it
Mhm.
is when the consequences for us are different.
Right.
So first of all, I'm concerned about if somebody had to use a gun, the consequences, because we've seen that too many times, right? Philando Castile,
Right.
he has all the right permitting, but then all of a sudden, when I'm black and I have the gun and all the right permitting, where is the NRA coming to my defense? Where are all the people who said I have the right to bear arms?
Right.
So
Yeah.
tell me about your thoughts on that point in terms of the unequal, I guess, just the unequal nature of gun ownership for, and if you try to use it, if you're black versus if you're not.
Right. I think first the most important thing is knowing the gun laws. You know, um, for instance, like if someone's breaking in your home and they're fleeing, you can't just shoot them in the back. You know what I mean? There's rules to every situation. You have to quote unquote under the law be under threat of violence. It's not just
I
I
can't be
caught.
like the cops and all the time be afraid
Yeah,
for my life. I
yeah,
can't do that.
yeah. You can't even do
Okay.
that. Somebody
Mhm.
breaking in your car, they running away, and you shooting at them, and you hit them. You have a problem. You got to know, where you can fire, so on and so forth. But to that point, we look at folks like I just mentioned, Anthony Hill, Breonna Taylor. They weren't armed. They weren't armed at all. So yeah, the gun can add on to it, but you had cases like Amadou Diallo up in New York, who had a wallet that they thought was a gun. Excuse me, yeah, that was Luala. Okay, and so many other cases where
They think everything is a gun, though. Yeah. Hmm.
absolutely, I mean, they thought Anthony Hill's private part was a gun, I suppose, because they shot him twice in a mass and he was naked. So um, the gun laws, I mean, the laws in general are always going to be imbalanced because of the fact that we're African people. We have a darker hue. So like you said, we're always a threat. We're always looking like we're violent. My hair is I'm automatically stereotyped. He must smoke weed. He got to be doing this. He got to be doing that. Look at his hair. You know what I mean? So I mean, we expect that. This is what comes with war. This is what comes with living in America. And there's no way we can get around it. So you have a choice again, armed or not armed. You defend yourself or don't defend yourself. Whatever the law is, they have that saying, I'd rather be judged by 12 than carried by 6. So that may be the motto. You stand a better chance of being judged than not being around to tell about it. So
So, Kalonji, I'm gonna try to use the technology to
uh-oh.
share. I know I'm doing new things. I'm gonna use something. So I want you to react to this article
Mm.
that I just saw. Right. So more Black Americans are buying guns. Is it driving up Black suicide rates? Right. So this was an article that came out recently in NPR, and they're talking about, especially over the past couple of years, gun ownership is soaring in the Black community, but apparently so is the suicide rate. So my question to you is, well, first of all, like, do I believe this?
Yeah,
um
that's the first
do
thing.
I believe do I believe that the suicide rates among Black Americans are being driven up by gun ownership any more than would be true for white America? But if this is true and we take that for a fact, how do we what can we do to help to work against a statistic like this, right? So if we talk about wanting to be prepared and we do have a right to bear arms, how can we do all of that without the fear of what could happen for folks in the home?
Yeah. It's wild because, unfortunately I know people that have committed suicide, and um from those who I've known throughout my life, you know, honestly, I know like one person who committed suicide by gun, and that was someone who uh was having some type of relationship problem, and he shot the woman and he shot himself. He ended up dying. She didn't die, whatever the case is. Um, but for the most part, there's been other methods. You know, do I believe those statistics? No, of course not. Because why? Because it's propaganda. Because what happens is, again, psychologically, you look at the article, you're already on the fence. You're like, well, I wasn't thinking about no gun anyway, but shit, I don't want to get stressed out and just go reach. You know what I mean? It's like, it's not the gun, it's the mind behind the gun. The gun itself isn't a dangerous tool. You put the gun down, a gun could sit on your table for 3 years. You don't touch it, no force of nature touches it, the gun is there. Nobody's shot. But it's the mind behind the gun. The minute someone picks it up and they're empowered by the gun, because you have to have a certain mentality with a gun as well. You don't, two things. One, if when you think about a gun, your automatic thought is to defend yourself against black folks, then we have problem. And the second thing is, if you feel that you can't move without the gun, then we have a problem. If you can't defend yourself without a gun, then that's a whole nother issue, because it's going to make you, you know what I
Puffed
mean? The,
up.
the, the chest pokes out, and, like you're the only one with a gun, and or if you can't keep the gun, because there's been a few times folks I know, I'm not going to name no names, that have disarmed people and, ended up with the gun that was pulled out on them. So that can happen too. So, you got to know, you know, ain't nobody gonna just sit there and, oh my Lord, please don't shoot me. You close enough and they think their life is in danger and you can't handle it, then you might not have it. So yeah, I don't believe those statistics, and I think that would all go back to mental health. It would all go back to us needing to deal with the trauma that we've suffered intergenerationally. We're talking about, when we deal with folks talk about the Holocaust, and they talk about, how, you know, they suffer trauma and so on and so forth. What do you think we suffer? We're talking about over 400 years of of violence enacted upon us traumatically. We've been beaten into submission, so much so that we're forced to change our very appearance to quote unquote fit in. I mean, that's a level of trauma in and of itself. Like, I can't even dress the way I feel. I can't even move like the rest of my people move. I can't even, my culture, I got to basically denounce my culture for the barbarians who kidnapped me and my people and who murdered us. I have to make them feel comfortable. How insane does that sound? the fact that you want to make sure that your oppressor is comfortable with your appearance. So yeah, I mean, we got to deal with that psychological trauma, and then and only then will we be able to advance, because we'll begin to understand each other. We'll look at each other not as suspect, but we'll look at each other as victims in need of healing, and we'll understand that it's not either or. In my opinion, I think that we all need therapy. A friend of mine has a song that he put out some years ago. He said the words were, "The world is sick. We need therapy." We definitely need therapy. Look at all of the challenges that we have. The fact that we're on Brokish Podcasts and we're talking about the need to arm ourselves. I would imagine, and I could be wrong, but when you all started this podcast, this probably wasn't one of the topics that you had in mind.
No.
You know what I mean? But the way things are, the way society's rolling, and the state that we're in, your wheels are turning. Like, man, it's really crazy out here. I mean, you got folks shooting up schools, shooting up churches, I mean, places that were traditionally safe
Untouchable.
spaces. Yeah, yeah. Not necessarily the churches, because we remember the 4 girls in Birmingham. We see what went on in South Carolina recently, a few years ago. But for the most part, we as Black people, as Africans, we always had a respect for the church. Even the heathens respected the church.
Uh-oh. Is this a testimony, Kalonji?
Nah, crazy thing about it, I was in the church at one point. I was actually an altar boy going back in the day. I set
Catholic.
up preaching. Nah, I was AME Zion. I was baptized
okay.
AME Zion
Okay.
and Baptist. And I was reading the Bible at 3. The first public speaking I did was age 7.
You was reading the Bible at 3. Kalonji.
I'll let you talk to my mama. Yeah. So at age 7, that was the first time I actually spoke in front of an audience at a revival, and it was like 500 people there. So that was my initial upbringing. But I was more Nat Turner than than Doc King.
Well,
so yeah.
Before we go, Kalonji, I just wanted to find out from you, where can folks find you? Where can people donate to your work? Where can people hear more about the things that you all are doing?
Hey, man, like the rappers say, you can find me in the A. Nah, you can find me. My Twitter is my name right here, at Kalonji Changa. That's number 1. You can support our work at thepeoplesarmy.org. As my colleague and comrade Erika Brown stated, I'm also one of the co-founders of the Black Power Media. So you can support us through there. We have a film that we're finishing up on, should be out in June, that we've been it's a documentary we've actually been working on for 14 years now, and we'll be releasing it officially. We've done 2 showings already, a screening in Atlanta and one in Australia.
Why don't I know anything about this?
Because you just see the ranting raving lunatic on the Remix Morning Show, so you assume that I don't know. But anyway, it's called Organizing is the New Cool. You can go to organizingisthenewcool.com. Organizingisthenewcool.com, and you can see what we're doing on that level. And it's just basically highlighting our efforts throughout the years, and interviews with a number of different veterans and elders in the Black liberation movement, the real BLM.
Well, Kalonji, thank you for joining us. Now it's just me again. Really, I hope Amber is okay.
Amber just ran on me, man. She like, I ain't got time for that. My pastor watched this joint. I'm just saying, it's all Erika. She be bugging. You know what I'm saying?
I know Amber said she's trying to keep her job. She ran off. She's like, hey, y'all not finna make me lose this check.
when you invited me on, I'm like, okay, you're trying to go out in rough waters. All right, now.
But brokers, so since Amber is not here, I'm going to give us the homework for the day. So the first thing is brought on by the episode. So join us on social media and tell us, how are y'all getting ready? How, because I always tell my kids, stay ready so you don't have to get ready. So how are we gonna get ready in these streets, right? Are you a toilet paper buyer? You gonna get you some water, you can, and your preserves. What are y'all doing to stay ready? Also, don't forget to go to YouTube and subscribe to Black Power Media's channel on YouTube. And you can give to the channel directly. They also have a Patreon where you can donate. So please do that. And visit the Urban Survival Preparedness Institute's website at thepeoplesarmy.org. So those are the things that we have to do for homework this episode. So, brokers, we know that our fight for full citizenship never ended. We can see just one example of how the right to bear arms has never been fully extended to us. We have seen too many examples of how we followed all the rules, did everything they told us to do, and still ended up dead or in prison based on an empty promise granted by the Constitution. Let's work and talk together about the ways that we can educate ourselves about a variety of tools and techniques that are available to us and how we can safely use the tools for recreation and protection if that's what we want to do. We don't have to let fear keep us from taking back the full rights that they constantly try to steal from us. Thanks for tuning in, and we look forward to catching up with you on the next episode of Brokish.